In a quiet corner of the solar system, far from the warmth of the sun, there was a small research outpost on Europa, one of Jupiter's icy moons. The outpost was home to a handful of scientists who spent their days studying the frozen world, searching for signs of life beneath its thick crust of ice. Among them were Dr. Emily Carter, an astrobiologist with a sharp mind and a curious nature, and Ryan Mitchell, a geologist known for his calm demeanor and steady hands. It was late at night when the strangest thing happened. Most of the crew had already retired to their quarters, leaving Emily and Ryan alone in the control room. The soft hum of machines filled the air as they worked through their daily tasks. Emily was analyzing data from the latest scans of Europa's subsurface ocean, while Ryan monitored seismic activity. Everything seemed normal, until it didn't. A sudden burst of static crackled through the speakers, startling both of them. At first, they thought it was just interference, a common issue given the outpost's location. But then came a sound that neither of them could explain, a long, piercing scream. It wasn't human, but it carried a haunting quality, as if it contained both anger and pain. The scream lasted only a few seconds before fading into silence, leaving the room eerily quiet. Ryan broke the silence first. "What was that?" he asked, his voice tinged with unease. "I don't know," Emily replied, her eyes glued to the monitors. She replayed the audio clip, trying to make sense of it. The scream sounded organic, like something alive, but it also had an unnatural edge to it. It was too loud, too deep, and too wrong. Before they could discuss it further, the scream returned, louder this time. This wasn't random noise. It was deliberate, almost like a signal. Emily felt a chill run down her spine. "We need to tell the others," she said, reaching for the intercom. But Ryan stopped her. "Wait. Let's see if it happens again." His curiosity outweighed his fear, and Emily reluctantly agreed. They waited, hearts pounding, until the scream echoed once more. Only this time, it was different. Mixed in with the shriek were faint whispers, barely audible over the distortion. Straining to hear, Emily adjusted the audio settings. The whispers grew clearer, forming words in broken English. "Help. Us." The room fell silent except for the sound of their breathing. Ryan looked at Emily, his face pale. "Did you hear that?" She nodded, unable to speak. Whatever, or whoever, was making those sounds knew they were listening. And now it was asking for help. The two scientists debated what to do next. Should they wake the rest of the crew, send a message back, or ignore it and hope it went away? Before they could decide, the lights flickered, plunging the control room into darkness for a brief moment. When they came back on, the monitors displayed something new, strange symbols scrolling across the screens. They weren't part of any language either of them recognized, yet they seemed purposeful, almost taunting. "This isn't natural," Ryan muttered, leaning closer to examine the symbols. "Something intelligent is doing this." Emily nodded, though her mind raced with questions. Was it a distress call, a warning, or something else entirely? One thing was certain. They weren't alone anymore. Something was out there, hidden beneath Europa's icy surface, and it had found them. As the hours passed, the screams continued, growing louder and more frequent. Each one sent a fresh wave of dread through the outpost. The crew gathered in the control room, their faces etched with worry and disbelief. No one slept that night. They all knew, deep down, that their lives had changed forever. Whatever was screaming in the dark wanted their attention, and it wouldn't stop until it got it. The next morning, the mood in the research outpost was tense. The crew had barely slept, their minds haunted by the screams that echoed through the night. Dr. Emily Carter and Ryan Mitchell stood in the control room, staring at the monitors still displaying the strange symbols. The rest of the team gathered around, whispering among themselves. No one knew what to do. "We can't just sit here," said Dr. Lisa Grant, a physicist with sharp eyes and an even sharper tone. "Whatever is out there knows we're here. We need to figure out what it wants." Ryan nodded but hesitated. Or maybe we should leave. Pack up and get out while we still can. Emily shook her head. We can't run. If this is a first contact situation, we have a responsibility to understand it. What if it's not hostile? What if it really needs help? Her words hung in the air, heavy with uncertainty. The idea of leaving felt like giving up, but staying meant risking their lives. After a long pause, Ryan finally spoke. If we're going to stay, we need to try communicating back. See if we can establish some kind of dialogue. Everyone agreed, though reluctantly. Using the outpost's communication array, Ryan crafted a simple message. We hear you. Who are you? He transmitted it repeatedly, hoping for a response. Minutes passed, then hours. Just as doubts began to creep in, the monitors flickered again. This time, the symbols change, forming new patterns that seemed more deliberate. It's responding, Emily said, her voice trembling with excitement and fear. She quickly snapped photos of the screen, documenting every detail. But before they could decipher anything, the lights dimmed once more. A deep rumble shook the entire station, throwing everyone off balance. What was that? Shouted Dr. Marcus Lane, a biologist clutching the edge of a desk. The ice, Ryan replied, his face pale. Something big moved under it. The shaking stopped as suddenly as it began, but the damage was done. Cracks spiderwebbed across the thick windows of the outpost, letting in faint beams of sunlight reflected off Europa's surface. Outside, the pristine white landscape looked distorted, as if something massive had shifted beneath the frozen crust. Panic spread among the crew. We need to call Earth, Lisa insisted. This isn't our problem anymore. It's too dangerous. Emily hesitated. Calling for help meant admitting defeat, and possibly bringing unwanted attention to whatever lurked below. Still, she couldn't argue with Lisa's logic. Reluctantly, she activated the long-range transmitter and sent a distress signal to Unified Space Command, explaining the situation and attaching the recordings of the screams and symbols. Hours later, as they waited anxiously for a reply, another sound filled the control room. This time, it wasn't a scream but a low guttural growl. It came from outside, close enough to send chills down their spines. Ryan rushed to the cracked window and peered out, squinting against the glare. At first, he saw nothing. Then movement caught his eye, a shadow sliding just beneath the ice, impossibly large and fast. Get away from the window, Emily yelled, pulling him back. They both stumbled backward as the shadow paused directly below them. For a moment, everything was still. Then, with a deafening crack, the ice shattered, sending shards flying in all directions. A monstrous shape emerged, its sleek, serpentine body glistening wetly in the dim light. Tentacle-like appendages writhed around its head, which bore rows of jagged teeth. The creature let out a roar that vibrated through the walls of the outpost. Everyone froze, paralyzed by fear. Finally, Lisa broke the silence. That thing, it's been listening to us this whole time. Before anyone could react, the creature slammed its tail against the side of the station, causing the entire structure to groan under the impact. Alarms blared as oxygen levels dropped, forcing the crew to scramble into emergency suits. Chaos erupted as they tried to secure the damaged areas and assess the situation. Through it all, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that they had made a terrible mistake. By responding to the screams, they had awakened something ancient and very, very angry. The outpost was in disarray. The crew scrambled to repair the damage caused by the creature's attack, their movements frantic and uncoordinated. Dr. Emily Carter worked alongside Ryan Mitchell, her hands trembling as she sealed a crack in the wall with emergency patching material. The air hissed faintly as oxygen leaked out, and the temperature inside the station began to drop. Outside, the alien creature loomed, its massive form gliding just beneath the shattered ice. Every so often, it would slam its tail against the station, testing the structure's integrity. "We can't stay here," Lisa Grant shouted over the noise. Her voice was sharp, edged with panic. If that thing breaks through, we're dead. Ryan nodded grimly. We need to figure out what it wants, or at least how to stop it. Emily looked up from her work, her mind racing. It responded to our message. That means it understands us on some level. Maybe we can reason with it. Lisa rolled her eyes. Reason with it? Are you serious? That thing just tried to tear us apart. She's right, Marcus Lane chimed in, his voice calmer but no less urgent. We don't know anything about it. It could be intelligent, or it could just see us as prey. Either way, we're not safe here. Despite the chaos, Emily couldn't ignore the possibility that they had misinterpreted the situation. The screams, the symbols, the movement beneath the ice, it all pointed to something more complex than a mindless predator. She turned to Ryan. What if it's scared? What if it thinks we're a threat? Ryan stared at her, his expression unreadable. Finally, he sighed. Even if you're right, we don't have the tools to communicate properly. We're stuck playing guessing games while that thing knocks us around like a tin can. As if on cue, another impact shook the station, sending equipment tumbling to the floor. The lights flickered, plunging the room into darkness for a few seconds before backup generators kicked in. The creature let out another guttural roar, this one louder and angrier than before. Enough. Lisa snapped. We need to focus on survival, not theories. If we don't act now, none of us will make it out alive. Emily reluctantly agreed. They couldn't afford to waste time debating motives when their lives were at stake. Together, the crew devised a plan to distract the creature long enough to gather supplies and retreat to a secondary shelter deeper within the outpost. It wasn't much, but it offered thicker walls and better protection against the cold. While the others prepared, Ryan suggested using the subsurface probe, nicknamed Echo, to investigate further. If we can get a closer look at whatever's down there, maybe we'll find a weakness, or at least learn more about it. Emily hesitated. Sending Echo into the icy depths felt like provoking the creature, but she knew Ryan was right. They needed answers. With shaky hands, she activated the probe and guided it toward the hole in the ice where the creature had emerged. The camera feed showed murky water and swirling debris, but soon movement appeared in the distance, long, sinuous shapes darting through the darkness. It's not alone, Ryan whispered, his face pale. On the screen, multiple creatures swam in formation, their sleek bodies glowing faintly with bioluminescent patterns. They seemed to be communicating, their movements synchronized as if following orders. Before they could process what they were seeing, one of the creatures suddenly lunged at the camera. The feed cut to static, leaving the control room silent except for the sound of labored breathing. Emily clenched her fists, frustration mixing with fear. Great. Now we've made it mad. Outside, the largest creature slammed its tail against the station once more, harder this time. Metal groaned, and the walls buckled inward. The crew exchanged panicked glances. Their temporary shelter wouldn't hold for long. We need to move. Now. Lisa shouted, grabbing a bag of supplies. The others followed suit, abandoning the control room as the creature continued its assault. As they fled, Emily glanced back at the monitors, now blank and lifeless. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were running away from more than just a monster. They were fleeing something far older, far smarter, and far more dangerous than any of them could comprehend. The crew huddled together in the secondary shelter, their breaths visible in the freezing air. The walls creaked under the strain of the creature's relentless attacks, and the dim red glow of emergency lights cast long shadows across their faces. Dr. Emily Carter sat on the cold floor, clutching a tablet with shaky hands. She replayed the last moments of the probe's footage over and over, trying to make sense of what they had seen. Multiple creatures, working together, glowing faintly in the dark waters beneath the ice. It wasn't just an animal. It was organized, intelligent. We need help, Lisa Grant said firmly, breaking the tense silence. We can't handle this alone. Ryan Mitchell nodded, his face pale but resolute. Agreed. We'll send another message to Earth. This time, we include everything. The screams, the symbols, the footage from Echo. If we're lucky, Unified Space Command will take us seriously." Emily hesitated. Sending for help meant exposing the situation to people who might not understand it, or worse, see it as a threat to be eliminated. But she knew Lisa was right. They couldn't survive much longer without reinforcements. With a deep breath, she activated the long-range transmitter and began typing out a detailed report. She attached all the data they had collected, including the eerie recordings and the chilling video of the creatures swimming in formation. Hours passed as they waited for a response. The shelter grew colder, and the distant thuds of the creature's tail against the station echoed through the walls. No one spoke much. Fear weighed heavily on them all. Finally, the radio crackled to life, startling everyone. "This is Unified Space Command. We've received your transmission. Stand by for further instructions." Relief washed over Emily, but it was short-lived. Over the next few hours, updates trickled in. General Marcus Hale, head of USMC operations in space, had taken charge of the situation. He confirmed that a military vessel, the US Invincible, was already en route to Europa. It would arrive in 3 days, carrying a team of Marines and advanced weaponry. "They're sending soldiers," Ryan muttered, running a hand through his hair. "Not scientists. Would you rather they sent poets?" Lisa snapped, her voice sharp. "We're dealing with monsters here, Ryan. Soldiers are exactly what we need." Emily frowned. But what if these creatures aren't hostile? What if they're just scared or trying to protect themselves? Sending in guns first could make things worse. "No offense, Emily," Marcus Lane interjected, "but those things don't look like they're interested in having a chat. They attacked us. They destroyed part of the outpost. I think it's safe to say they're dangerous." Before Emily could argue, the shelter shook violently. Another impact from outside sent dust raining down from the ceiling. Everyone froze, listening to the ominous groan of metal bending under pressure. The largest creature was still out there, and it clearly hadn't given up. "We can't stay here," Lisa said, standing up. "If that thing breaks through, we're done for. We need to find a way to hold it off until the Invincible gets here." Ryan nodded reluctantly. "We'll use the remaining equipment to set up defenses. Maybe we can rig some kind of trap or distraction." Working quickly, the crew gathered scraps of machinery and tools, piecing together crude barriers and alarms. Emily stayed behind in the shelter, monitoring the radio for any updates from Earth. Her mind raced with questions. Would the soldiers listen to her warnings about the creature's possible intelligence, or would they act impulsively, escalating the conflict? As night fell, or what passed for night on Europa, the attacks grew less frequent. The creature seemed to be biding its time, circling the outpost like a predator waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Outside, the icy landscape shimmered faintly in the reflected light of Jupiter, beautiful and deadly at the same time. Emily stared at the monitors, her thoughts swirling. She wanted to believe that help was coming, that the arrival of the US Invincible would solve everything. But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into something far bigger and far more complicated than anyone on Earth realized. 3 days passed in a blur of tension and fear. The crew rotated shifts, some keeping watch while others tried to rest. The attacks from the creature outside had slowed, but its presence was always felt. A looming shadow beneath the ice, a low growl that echoed through the outpost's damaged walls. Dr. Emily Carter spent most of her time monitoring the radio, waiting for any sign of the US Invincible. She knew their survival depended on the ship's arrival, but every hour that ticked by felt like an eternity. Finally, on the morning of the 3rd day, the radio crackled to life. "This is Captain Laura Bennett of the US Invincible. We're entering Europa's orbit. Prepare for landing." Relief washed over the crew, though it was tempered by exhaustion. They gathered their remaining supplies and prepared to meet the Marines, knowing their arrival would bring both hope and danger. Outside, The icy landscape glimmered under Jupiter's light as the massive warship descended, its engines roaring against the silence of space. When the hatch opened, a team of heavily armed Marines stepped out, led by Captain Bennett herself. She was a tall woman with sharp features and an air of authority that commanded respect. Behind her were soldiers carrying advanced weapons and scanning equipment, ready for anything, or anyone, that might pose a threat. Emily approached cautiously, her hands raised to show she meant no harm. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "We've been under attack for days. There's something out there, something big and dangerous." Captain Bennett nodded, her expression unreadable. "We received your reports. Show us where it happened." The crew led the Marines to the damaged section of the outpost, pointing out the cracks in the ice and the faint shadows moving beneath the surface. As they explained what they had seen, Private Jake Miller, a young soldier with wide eyes and a nervous energy, kept glancing around, his finger twitching on the trigger of his rifle. "This thing, it's smart?" he asked, his voice shaky. "Like alien smart?" Emily hesitated before answering. "We think so. It responded to our messages, and it seems to work with others of its kind. But we don't know if it's hostile or just scared." Captain Bennett frowned. "Scared aliens can still kill you. Stay alert." She turned to her team. "Set up a perimeter, scan the area, and keep your weapons ready." As the Marines began their work, tensions ran high. Some of the crew members exchanged uneasy glances, worried about how the soldiers would handle the situation. Emily pulled Captain Bennett aside, speaking in a low voice. "Please, be careful. If these creatures are intelligent, attacking them could make things worse." Bennett studied her for a moment, then nodded. "I'll do what I have to do to protect my people, and yours, but I won't risk lives based on guesses." Before Emily could respond, one of the soldiers called out, "Movement detected. Something's coming." Everyone froze as a shadow slid beneath the ice, heading straight for them. The Marines raised their weapons, fingers tightening on triggers. Emily stepped forward, waving her arms. "Wait, don't shoot." But it was too late. Private Miller, visibly shaken, fired a burst of plasma rounds into the ice. The surface cracked violently, and a deafening roar erupted from below. Moments later, the largest creature burst through, its glowing body thrashing wildly. Chaos erupted as the Marines opened fire, their weapons lighting up the frozen landscape. The creature retaliated, slamming its tail against the ground and sending shards of ice flying. Soldiers scattered, shouting orders and returning fire. Emily watched in horror as the situation spiraled out of control. What had started as a rescue mission was now a full-blown battle. When the smoke cleared, the creature retreated back into the depths, leaving behind a trail of destruction. Captain Bennett surveyed the scene, her jaw clenched. "Fall back to the outpost. Regroup and assess the damage." As they returned, Emily couldn't help but feel a deep sense of dread. They had survived. For now, but at what cost? The Marines' aggressive response had only angered the creature further. And worse, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone among them wasn't telling the whole truth. Suspicion lingered in the air, mingling with the cold. Back at the outpost, the mood was grim. The battle had left everyone shaken, and the tension between the scientists and the Marines was palpable. Dr. Emily Carter sat in the corner of the control room, staring at the monitors. Her mind raced with questions. Why had the creature attacked so violently? Was it truly defending itself, or was there something more sinister at play? She couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing a crucial piece of the puzzle. Captain Laura Bennett paced the room, her expression unreadable. "We underestimated them," she admitted finally, breaking the silence. "These things aren't just animals. They're organized, strategic. We need to figure out what they want. And fast." Emily nodded slowly. "That's what I've been trying to tell you. If we can decode their symbols, maybe we can understand them better. It might be our only chance to avoid another fight." Bennett hesitated but eventually agreed. All right. What do you need? With the Marines' help, Emily and Ryan Mitchell gathered all the data they had collected, the recordings of the screams, the eerie symbols from the monitors, and the footage from the probe echo. They set up a workstation in the corner of the room, poring over every detail. Specialist Alex Torres, a cryptographer assigned to the U.S. Invincible, joined them, his sharp eyes scanning the alien markings. For hours, they worked in near silence, the hum of computers filling the air. Finally, Alex leaned back in his chair, his face lighting up with excitement. I think I've got something. These symbols, they're not random. They form patterns, almost like sentences. Emily leaned closer, her heart pounding. What do they say? Alex hesitated, his brow furrowing as he translated. It's fragmented, but there's a warning here. Something about betrayal. And then this part. It says, save yourselves. The room fell silent. Emily exchanged a glance with Ryan, both of them processing the implications. Betrayal, she whispered. Does that mean these creatures were betrayed by someone? Or something? Ryan frowned. Or maybe they're warning us about someone else. Someone who did this to them. Before they could discuss it further, one of the Marines called out from the other side of the room. Movement detected. Multiple contacts heading this way. Everyone froze. Outside, the icy landscape shimmered faintly under Jupiter's glow, but beneath the surface, shadows darted back and forth. The creatures were gathering, more of them than before. Their glowing bodies pulsed rhythmically, as if communicating with each other. They're planning something, Captain Bennett said, her voice tight. Get ready. Emily stepped forward, her hands raised. Wait, firing on them won't solve anything. If they're trying to communicate, we need to listen. Bennett hesitated, torn between caution and the instinct to protect her team. Finally, she nodded. Fine. But if they attack, we retaliate. Understood. Emily turned to Alex. Can we send a message back? Use the same symbols to show we understand. Alex nodded quickly. I'll try. It's risky, but it might work. Working together, they pieced together a simple response using the alien symbols. We hear you. We are not your enemy. They transmitted the message repeatedly, hoping for a reaction. Minutes passed in tense silence. Then the monitors flickered again. New symbols appeared, scrolling across the screen. Alex studied them closely, his eyes widening. They're responding. They're asking why we came. Emily took a deep breath. Tell them we came to explore, to learn. Alex typed out the reply, and the symbols shifted once more. This time, the message was clearer. You are not the first. The room went still. Emily felt a chill run down her spine. Not the first. Who else has been here? Before anyone could answer, the ground shook violently. Outside, the largest creature emerged from the ice, its massive body glowing brighter than ever. But instead of attacking, it paused, as if waiting. The smaller creatures formed a circle around it, their movements synchronized. They're watching us, Ryan whispered, his voice trembling. Testing us. Captain Bennett gripped her weapon tightly, her eyes scanning the horizon. Whatever happens next, stay alert. We don't know what they'll do. As the standoff continued, Emily couldn't help but wonder. Were they dealing with victims or aggressors? And who, or what, had come before them? The standoff outside the outpost stretched on, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. The largest creature stood motionless, its glowing body casting an eerie light over the icy landscape. Around it, the smaller creatures moved in slow, deliberate patterns, their movements almost hypnotic. Inside the outpost, Dr. Emily Carter and the others watched through cracked windows, their breaths visible in the freezing air. They're waiting for something, Ryan Mitchell muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. But what? Captain Laura Bennett tightened her grip on her weapon, her eyes scanning the horizon. We can't just sit here. If they attack again, we'll be caught off guard. Emily shook her head. No, they haven't attacked yet. That has to mean something. Maybe they're giving us a chance to prove ourselves. Bennett frowned but didn't argue. Instead, she turned to Private Jake Miller, who was standing nearby. Keep an eye on the scanners. If they move, I want to know immediately. Jake nodded nervously, his hands trembling as he adjusted the settings on his equipment. Emily noticed his unease and felt a pang of sympathy. He was young, probably fresh out of training, and clearly unprepared for the chaos unfolding around him. As the minutes dragged on, Alex Torres continued working on the alien symbols, trying to piece together more of their meaning. There's something else here, he said suddenly, his voice tinged with urgency. These symbols, they're not just about betrayal. They're also about enslavement. Enslavement? Emily asked, her heart racing. You mean these creatures were slaves? Alex nodded. It looks that way. Whoever came before us, they might have used these creatures for something. Forced them to do things against their will. Ryan let out a low whistle. So they're not the bad guys. They're victims. Maybe, Emily said cautiously. But if they think we're connected to whoever did this to them, they might see us as a threat. Before anyone could respond, Jake suddenly shouted. Movement detected. Multiple contacts approaching fast. Everyone turned toward the window. Dozens of glowing shapes emerged from beneath the ice, surrounding the outpost in a tight circle. Their rhythmic pulsing grew brighter, almost blinding. Then, without warning, the largest creature let out a deafening roar, shaking the ground beneath their feet. It's now or never, Captain Bennett said, raising her weapon. Get ready. But Emily stepped forward, her arms outstretched. Wait, they haven't attacked yet. Let's give them one more chance. Reluctantly, Bennett lowered her weapon, though her finger remained close to the trigger. Outside, the creatures paused, their glowing forms flickering faintly. For a moment, everything was still. Then, the monitors inside the outpost flickered again. New symbols appeared, scrolling across the screen faster than before. Alex studied them intently, his brow furrowed. They're asking about weapons. They want to know if we've brought weapons. Emily's stomach sank. Of course they'd ask that. After what happened earlier. Weapons? What weapons? Ryan whispered, glancing at the Marine's gear. They don't mean our rifles, do they? Before anyone could answer, Jake's face went pale. Guys, I think someone leaked our plans. Look at this. He held up his scanner, which displayed a faint transmission signal emanating from somewhere inside the outpost. You've got to be kidding me, Bennett growled, her voice sharp with anger. Someone's been sending intel to those things. Panic spread through the room as everyone looked at each other suspiciously. Who among them would betray the team? And why? Outside, the creatures seemed to react to the discovery, their glowing bodies pulsing erratically. The largest one let out another roar, louder this time, and began moving closer to the outpost. We need to figure this out, now, Emily said, her voice rising. If we don't, none of us are getting out of here alive. As accusations flew and tempers flared, the situation grew more volatile by the second. Whatever trust had existed between the crew and the Marines was crumbling. And outside, the creatures were growing restless. The tension inside the outpost reached a breaking point. Accusations flew as everyone tried to figure out who had leaked their plans to the creatures. Captain Laura Bennett's voice cut through the chaos, sharp and commanding. Enough. Arguing won't solve anything. We need to focus on what's happening outside. Emily Carter stepped forward, her face pale but determined. She's right. If the creatures know about our weapons, they might see us as a threat. We need to show them we're not here to fight. Ryan Mitchell shook his head. How? They've already attacked once. What makes you think they'll believe us now? Before Emily could answer, Private Jake Miller spoke up, his voice trembling. I didn't mean for this to happen. I swear. All eyes turned to him. Jake looked around nervously, his hands shaking. When we first arrived, I sent a message back to the Invincible. Just a status update. I thought it was secure, but maybe it wasn't. Captain Bennett's jaw tightened. You compromised our position. Jake flinched under her glare. I didn't know. I thought it was routine. Bennett let out a frustrated sigh. This changes everything. If they intercepted that transmission, they know exactly what we're capable of. Outside, the creatures responded to the rising tension. Their glowing bodies pulsed faster, brighter, and their movements became more erratic. The largest creature slammed its tail against the ice, sending cracks spreading toward the outpost. It was clear they were losing patience. We need to act fast, Emily said, her voice steady despite the fear in her chest. If we can decode more of their symbols, maybe we can explain ourselves. Show them we're not like whoever hurt them before. Alex Torres nodded, his fingers flying over the keyboard. I'm working on it, but it's complicated. These symbols are layered with meaning. It's like trying to read a foreign language while learning it at the same time. As Alex worked, Ryan turned to Emily. What if we offer them something? A gesture of goodwill. Emily hesitated. Like what? Ryan glanced at the Marines' equipment, their weapons. If we lay down our arms, maybe they'll see we're serious about peace. Bennett's eyes narrowed. That's a huge risk. If they attack, we'll be defenseless. It's the only way, Emily insisted. We can't fight them and win. Not without destroying everything we came here to learn. After a long pause, Bennett finally nodded. All right. But if this goes wrong, it's on you. The team gathered all their weapons and placed them in a pile near the cracked window. Emily took a deep breath and stepped outside, her hands raised high. The cold air bit at her skin, but she forced herself to stay calm. Behind her, Ryan and the others followed, their faces pale but resolute. The creatures paused, their glowing forms flickering faintly. The largest one moved closer, its massive body casting a shadow over the group. Emily swallowed hard and pointed to the pile of weapons, then held up her empty hands. We come in peace, she said, hoping her tone conveyed sincerity, even if her words couldn't. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the monitors inside flickered again. New symbols appeared, scrolling across the screen. Alex rushed to translate them. They're asking why we're doing this. Emily turned to Ryan, who quickly explained their actions using simple gestures and the alien symbols they had learned. The creatures watched silently, their glowing bodies dimming slightly. Finally, the largest creature let out a low rumble, softer than before. It didn't sound angry anymore. Instead, it almost seemed curious. They're responding, Alex said, his voice filled with awe. They say, trust. A wave of relief washed over the group, though the danger wasn't over yet. The creatures began retreating, sliding back beneath the ice. As the last of them disappeared, Emily felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they had taken the first step toward understanding each other. But as the team returned inside, Captain Bennett reminded them grimly, don't celebrate yet. Trust is earned, not given. And we're still far from safe. The creature's retreat brought a brief moment of calm, but no one inside the outpost dared to relax. Dr. Emily Carter sat in the control room, her eyes glued to the monitors as Alex Torres worked tirelessly to decode more of the alien symbols. The message they had received, trust, was both hopeful and unsettling. Did the creatures truly mean it, or were they biding their time? Captain Laura Bennett paced the room, her boots clicking against the cold metal floor. This isn't over, she said firmly, breaking the silence. Even if they're willing to talk, we need to stay ready. We don't know what they'll do next. Ryan Mitchell nodded, his face pale but determined. We've made progress, but we're still in their territory. One wrong move, and this could all fall apart. Emily turned to Alex. What else can you tell us? Anything about their history? Who enslaved them? Alex hesitated, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. It's fragmented, but there's mention of a superior race, something advanced enough to control them. From what I can gather, these creatures were tools, or weapons, used by whoever came before us. Ryan frowned. So someone else was here first, someone who knew how to use them. And left them behind, Emily added, her voice heavy with dread. Maybe that's why they attacked us at first. They thought we were connected to those who hurt them. Bennett crossed her arms. Great, so we're dealing with centuries of pain and anger. That's just what we needed. Outside, the icy landscape shimmered faintly under Jupiter's glow. The cracks in the ice from earlier had frozen over, but faint shadows still moved beneath the surface. The creatures weren't gone. They were watching, waiting. Emily stood up, her mind racing. If we want to earn their trust, we need to show them we're different, that we're not like the ones who enslaved them. How? Ryan asked. We can't exactly go back in time and fix what happened. No, Emily replied, but we can offer them help. If we share our knowledge, if we show them we're here to learn, not conquer, it might make a difference. Bennett raised an eyebrow. You think they'll believe us after everything? It's worth a shot, Emily insisted. If we don't try, we'll never know. With the team's reluctant agreement, they prepared another message using the alien symbols. This time, they included images of Earth, its people, and its advancements in science and medicine. They also sent recordings of human voices speaking simple words like peace and friend. It was a gamble, but Emily hoped it would convey sincerity. Hours passed as they waited for a response. Finally, the monitors flickered again. New symbols appeared, scrolling across the screen faster than before. Alex leaned closer, his brow furrowed. They're asking what we can give them. Emily's heart raced. Tell them we'll share everything we know. Technology, medicine, anything that might help them heal. Alex typed out the response, and the symbols shifted once more. This time, the message was clearer. Prove it. They want proof, Ryan muttered. But how? Before anyone could answer, the ground shook violently. Outside, the largest creature emerged from the ice, its glowing body brighter than ever. Around it, smaller creatures formed a protective circle, their movements synchronized. The standoff had returned, but this time, the tone felt different. Emily stepped outside cautiously, holding up a tablet displaying diagrams of Earth's medical technology. She pointed to the images, then gestured toward the creatures. We can help you, she said, her voice steady despite the fear in her chest. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the largest creature let out a low rumble, almost like a sigh. Its glowing body dimmed slightly, and it lowered its massive head as if nodding. They're accepting, Alex whispered, his voice filled with awe. They're giving us a chance. Relief washed over the group, though the danger wasn't over yet. As the creatures retreated once more, Captain Bennett reminded them grimly, don't get too comfortable. Trust is fragile. One mistake, and this whole thing falls apart. Emily nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. They had taken the first step toward peace, but the road ahead would be long and uncertain. For now, though, they had hope, and sometimes that was enough. The days that followed were a delicate dance of trust and caution. The creatures, whom Emily Carter had begun to call the Veilith, remained wary but curious. They allowed the humans to venture outside the outpost in small groups, always under their watchful eyes. Each interaction was a test, a chance to prove that humanity wasn't like the ones who had enslaved them. Dr. Emily Carter worked tirelessly alongside Alex Torres, sharing knowledge through diagrams, videos, and carefully translated messages. The Veilith responded slowly, their glowing symbols flickering across the monitors as they communicated back. Over time, fragments of their story emerged. They had once been a peaceful species, living in harmony beneath Europa's ice. But centuries ago, a more advanced race, long extinct, had discovered them and forced them into servitude. When their captors vanished, the Valeth had been left behind, scared and distrustful of outsiders. "They're survivors," Emily said one evening, her voice filled with both awe and sadness. "They've endured so much." Captain Laura Bennett nodded, though her expression remained guarded. "Survivors can still be dangerous. We can't let our guard down." Despite the risks, progress was undeniable. Using Earth's medical technology, the team began treating injuries the Valeth had sustained during their enslavement. Ryan Mitchell marveled at how quickly they adapted to the new treatments, their bioluminescent bodies reacting positively to the unfamiliar methods. In return, the Valeth shared glimpses of their own knowledge, advanced techniques for harnessing energy from Europa's ocean currents, and insights into the moon's hidden ecosystems. As trust grew, so did cooperation. The Marines, initially skeptical, found themselves working alongside the Valeth to repair the damaged outpost. Private Jake Miller, still guilt-ridden over his earlier mistake, threw himself into the effort, earning tentative nods of approval from the creatures. Slowly, the tension between the two groups began to ease. One day, Emily stood outside the outpost, gazing at the frozen landscape. The largest Valeth approached her, its massive form gliding silently across the ice. It paused a few feet away, its glowing body dimmed to a soft pulse. Emily held her breath, unsure what it would do next. Then, to her astonishment, it extended one of its tentacle-like appendages, gently brushing against her hand. "It's okay," she whispered, her voice trembling. She reached out cautiously, her fingers grazing its smooth, cool surface. A wave of warmth spread through her, not physical heat, but something deeper, almost like understanding. Inside the outpost, Captain Bennett watched the scene unfold through a cracked window. "This is incredible," she admitted, her usual stern demeanor softened by wonder. "I never thought I'd see the day when humans and aliens could work together." Ryan joined her, his face split into a rare smile. "It's not just about survival anymore. It's about coexistence." As the U.S. Invincible prepared to depart, Emily gathered the crew and the Marines for a final meeting. "We came here looking for answers," she said, her voice steady and clear. "What we found was something far greater, a chance to build a relationship with another intelligent species. This isn't just a victory for us, it's a victory for all of humanity." Bennett stepped forward, her tone serious but respectful. "You're right. But don't forget, the road ahead won't be easy. There will be challenges, misunderstandings, maybe even setbacks. But if we keep moving forward, there's no telling what we can achieve." With heavy hearts and renewed hope, the humans boarded the Invincible, leaving behind a fragile but promising alliance. As the ship ascended into space, Emily looked out the window at Europa's icy surface. Beneath it, the Valeth watched the stars, their glowing forms pulsing faintly in the dark. Together, humans and Valeth had taken the first step toward mutual survival, and perhaps, one day, friendship. For now, the universe felt a little less lonely.